Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhya patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So welcome to our reading of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are up to chapter, what's the number, 23? 22. Stealing the garments of the unmarried Gopi girls. Before we get in there, we're going to sing a little bit. Prabhupada put this in the introduction. Krishna, 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 Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Krishna, 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaudavani Pacharane Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschachade Sadarane Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So now we're up to chapter 22 in the Krishna book, which as you see here is titled Stealing the Garments of the Unmarried Gopi Girls. Just before I go there, I want to say one thing. The previous verse concerns the married gopis who are walking through Vrindavan and appreciating the beauty of it. And so these are all the married gopis. This is unmarried.
Yeah.
These they were married gopis, and Radharani is considered to have been among them, because one of the things that she did, that they do, that is glorify Govardhan Hill, the married gopis. And there's a verse which is quoted actually in Prabhupada translated it from chapter 21, which is actually found also in Madhya-lila 1834, because it's described that Lord Chaitanya, when he came to Vrindavan, saw Govardhan Hill and fell into ecstasy at seeing it, and then recited this verse from the last chapter. Hantaya Madhya Bala Haridasa Varyo Yad Rama Krishna Charana Sparasha Pramudaha Manam Tanuti Sahago Ganayostayor Yat Paniya Suya Vasakandara Kandamulai. Prabhupada's translation of this: of all the devotees, this Govardhan Hill is the best. It's Haridasa Varya, the best servant of Hari. O my friends, this hill supplies Krishna and Balaram, as well as their calves, cows, and cowherd friends, with all kinds of necessities, water for drinking, very soft grass, caves, fruits, flowers, and vegetables. In this way, the hill offers respect to the Lord. By being touched by the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram, Govardhan Hill appears to be very jubilant. So that was in this last chapter, and Vishnu Chakravarti attributes this verse to Radharani. So now we come to the unmarried Gopi girls, chapter 22. According to Vedic civilization, unmarried girls from 10 to 14 years of age are supposed to worship either Lord Shiva or Goddess Durga in order to get a nice husband. But the unmarried girls of Vrindavan were already attracted by the beauty of Krishna. Remember, they didn't pick their own husbands in those days. It was done by elderly family members. They were, however, engaged in the worship of Goddess Durga in the beginning of the Hemanta season, just prior to the winter season. The first month of Hemanta is Agrahayana, October, November, and at that time, all the unmarried gopis of Vrindavan began to worship Goddess Durga with a vow. They first ate havishyana, a kind of food prepared by boiling together mung dal and rice without any spices or turmeric. According to Vedic injunction, this kind of food is recommended to purify the body before one enacts a ritualistic ceremony. All the unmarried gopis in Vrindavan used to worship Goddess Katyayani early in the morning. After taking a bath in the river Jamuna. Katyayani is another name for Goddess Durga. The goddess is worshipped by preparing a doll made of sand from the bank of the Jamuna. It is recommended in the Vedic scriptures that a deity be made from different kinds of material elements. It can be painted, made of metal, made of jewels, made of wood, earth, or stone, or can be conceived within the heart of the worshipper. The Mayavadi philosopher takes all these forms of the deity to be imaginary, but actually they are accepted in the Vedic literatures to be identical with either the Supreme Lord or a respective demigod. The unmarried gopis used to prepare the deity of Goddess Durga and worship it with chandana pulp, garlands, incense, lamps, and all kinds of presentation, fruits, grains, and twigs of plants. After worshiping, it is the custom to pray for some benediction. The unmarried girls used to pray with great devotion to Goddess Katyayani, addressing her as follows: O supreme external energy of the personality of Godhead, O supreme power, O supreme controller of this material world, O Goddess, please be kind to us and arrange for our marriage with the son of Nanda Maharaj, Krishna. Do we have the Sanskrit for that?
The one you sent me?
Huh?
The one that you sent me?
Yeah, we'll put it up there. I've got the Sanskrit out of the Bhagavatam. You can see the mantra they chanted. Here it is. Katyayani Mahamaye Mahayogini Adishwari Nanda Gopal Sutta Devi Patimme Kurute Namaha. So they address her, Katyayani Mahamaya, who has Maya, who is the great yogi, who is the Adishwari, the goddess, and then asking Nandagopa Sutta, the son of Nandagopa, make him my husband. So that's the verse right there in Sanskrit. The Vaishnavas generally do not worship any demigods. Srila Narottama Das Thakur has strictly forbidden all worship of the demigods for anyone who wants to advance in pure devotional service. Yet the gopis, who are beyond compare in their affection for Krishna, were seen to worship Durga. The worshippers of demigods sometimes mention that the gopis worshipped goddess Durga, but we must understand the purpose of the gopis. Generally, people worship goddess Durga for some material benediction. Here, the gopis prayed to the goddess to become wives of Krishna, wives of Lord Krishna. The purport is that if Krishna is the center of activity, a devotee can adopt any means to achieve that goal. The gopis could adopt any means to satisfy or serve Krishna. That was the super excellent characteristic of the gopis. They worshipped goddess Durga completely for 1 month in order to have Krishna as their husband. Every day they prayed for Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, to become their husband. Early in the morning, the gopis used to go to the bank of the Jamuna to take a bath. They would assemble together and, holding one another's hands, loudly sing of the wonderful pastimes of Krishna. It is an old system among Indian girls and women that when they take a bath in the river, they place their garments on the bank and dip into the water completely naked. The portion of the river where the girls and women bathe was strictly prohibited to any male, and this is still the system. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, knowing the minds of the unmarried young gopis, blessed them with their desired objective. They had prayed for Krishna to become their husband, and Krishna wanted to fulfill their desires. At the end of the month, Krishna, along with his friends, appeared on the scene. Another name for Krishna is Yogeshwara, or master of all mystic powers. By practicing meditation, the yogi can study the psychic movements of other men, and certainly Krishna could understand the desire of the gopis. Appearing on the scene, Krishna immediately collected all the garments of the gopis, climbed up into a nearby tree, and, with a smiling face, began to speak to them. "My dear girls," he said, "please come here, one after another, and pray for your garments, and then take them away. I'm not joking with you. I'm telling the truth. I'm just telling the truth. I have no desire to play any joke with you, for you're tired from observing the regulative principles for 1 month by worshiping goddess Katyayani. Please do not come here all at once. Come alone. I want to see each of you in your complete beauty, for you all have thin waists. I have requested you to come alone. Now, please comply." When the girls in the water heard such joking words from Krishna, they began to look at one another and smile. They were very joyous to hear such a request from Krishna because they were already in love with him. Out of shyness, they looked at one another, but they could not come out of the water because they were naked. Due to remaining in the water for a long time, they felt cold and were shivering. Yet upon hearing the pleasing, joking words of Govinda, their minds were perturbed with great joy. They told Krishna, "Dear son of Nanda Maharaj, please do not joke with us in that way. It is completely unjust to us. You are a very respectable boy because you are the son of Nanda Maharaj, and you are very dear to us. But you should not play this joke on us because now we are all shivering from the cold water. Kindly deliver our garments immediately, otherwise we shall suffer." They then began to appeal to Krishna with great submission. "Dear Shyamasundar," Sundar, they said, "we are all your eternal servitors. Whatever you order us to do, we are obliged to perform without hesitation because we consider it our religious duty. But if you insist on putting this proposal to us, which is impossible to perform, then certainly we will have to go to Nanda Maharaj and lodge a complaint against you. If Nanda Maharaj does not take action, then we shall tell King Kamsa about your misbehavior." Upon hearing this appeal by the unmarried gopis, Krishna answered, "My dear girls, if you think that you are my eternal servitors and you are always ready to execute my order, then my request is that with your smiling faces, you please come here alone, one after another, and take away your garments. If you do not come here, however, and if you lodge complaints with my father, I shall not care anyway. For I know my father is old and cannot take any action against me." When the gopis saw that Krishna was strong and determined, they had no alternative but to abide by his order. One after another, they came out of the water, but because they were completely naked, they tried to cover their nakedness by placing their left hand over their pubic area. In that posture, they were all shivering. Their simple presentation was so pure that Lord Krishna immediately became pleased with them. All the unmarried gopis who prayed to Katyayani to have Krishna as their husband were thus satisfied. A woman cannot be naked before any male except her husband. The unmarried gopis desired Krishna as their husband, and he fulfilled their desire in this way. Being pleased with them, he took their garments on his shoulder and began to speak as follows. "My dear girls, you've committed a great offense by going naked into the river Jamuna. Because of this, the predominating deity of the Jamuna, Varuna Dev, has become displeased with you. Please, therefore, just touch your foreheads with folded palms and bow down before the demigod Varuna in order to be excused from this offensive act." By touching your foreheads with folded palms, he means Kritanjali. This, where you, in India, you accept a blessing by sort of putting your palms like this and receive the benediction. So this is called Kritanjali. So you'll naturally know that when they do that, whatever they were trying to cover up becomes exposed. The gopis were all simple souls, and whatever Krishna said, they took to be true. In order to be freed from the wrath of Varunadev, as well as to fulfill the desired end of their vows, and ultimately to please their worshipable Lord Krishna, they immediately abided by his order. Thus they became the greatest lovers of Krishna and his most obedient servitors. Nothing can compare with the Krishna consciousness of the gopis. Actually, the gopis did not care for Varuna or any other demigod. They only wanted to satisfy Krishna. Krishna became very ingratiated and satisfied by the simple dealings of the gopis, and he immediately delivered their respective garments, one after another. Although Krishna cheated the young unmarried gopis and made them stand naked before him and enjoyed joking words with them, and although he treated them just like dolls and stole their garments, they were still pleased with him and never lodged complaints against him. This attitude of the gopis is described by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he prays, "My dear Lord Krishna, you may embrace me or trample me under your feet, or you may make me broken-hearted by never being present before me. Whatever you like, you can do, because you have complete freedom to act. But in spite of all your dealings, you are my Lord eternally, and I have no other worshipable object." This is the attitude of the gopis toward Krishna. You may recognize this. Aslishyava pararatam pinastumam darshanan marmahatam karotuva yata tatava vidatalapato prananata tusareva napaha. So it's the idea that you may strike me. Marmahatam. The marmas are in martial arts, they're the fatal points of the body. You hit them there, they die. These are the marmas. My Ayurvedic medicine treats marmas. Marmahatam. Really kills you. Where are we here?
Lord Krishna was pleased. The very top.
Lord Krishna was pleased with them, and since they all desired to have him as their husband, he told them, "My dear, well-behaved girls, I know of your desire for me and why you worship Goddess Katyayani, and I completely approve of your action. Anyone whose full consciousness is always absorbed in me, even if in lust, is elevated. As a fried seed cannot fructify, so any desire in connection with my loving service cannot produce any fruitive result as in ordinary karma." There's a statement in the Brahma Samhita, "Karmani nirdahati kim tuja bhakti bhajam." Everyone is bound by his fruitive activities, but the devotees, because they work completely for the satisfaction of the Lord, suffer no reaction. Similarly, the gopis' attitude toward Krishna, although seemingly lusty, should not be considered to be like the lusty desires of ordinary women. The reason is explained by Krishna himself. Activities in devotional service to Krishna are transcendental to any fruitive result. "My dear gopis," Krishna continued, "your desire to have me as your husband will be fulfilled, because it is with this desire that you worship Goddess Katyayani. I promise you that during the next autumn season, you shall be able to meet with me, and you shall enjoy me as your husband." That, of course, is the Rasalila. Later, Krishna, in the company of his cowherd boyfriends, took shelter of the shade of some trees and became very happy. Thus he addressed the inhabitants of Vrindavan. My dear Stoka Krishna, my dear Varutapa, my dear Bhadrasena, my dear Sudama, my dear Subala, my dear Arjuna, my dear Vishala, my dear Rishabha, just look at these most fortunate trees of Vrindavan. They have dedicated their lives to the welfare of others. Individually, they are tolerating all kinds of natural disturbances, such as hurricanes, torrents of rain, scorching heat, and piercing cold, but they are very careful to relieve our fatigue and give us shelter. My dear friends, I think they are glorified in this birth as trees. They are so careful to give shelter to others that they are like noble, highly elevated, charitable men who never deny charity to one who approaches them. No one is denied shelter by these trees. They supply various kinds of facilities to human society, such as leaves, flowers, fruit, shade, roots, bark, flavor, extracts, and fuel. They are the perfect example of noble life. They are like a noble person who has sacrificed everything possible, his body, mind, activities, intelligence, and words, for the welfare of all living entities. Thus the Supreme Personality of Godhead walked on the bank of the Jamuna, touching the leaves of the trees and their fruits, flowers, and twigs, and praising their glorious welfare activities. Different people may accept certain welfare activities to be beneficial for human society, according to their own views, but welfare activity that can be rendered to people in general for eternal benefit is the spreading of the Krishna consciousness movement. Everyone should be prepared to propagate this movement. As instructed by Lord Chaitanya, one should be humbler than the grass on the ground and more tolerant than the tree. The toleration of the tree is explained by Lord Krishna himself, and those who are engaged in the preaching of Krishna consciousness should learn lessons from the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and of teachings of Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya through their direct disciplic succession. While passing through the forest of Vrindavan, on the bank of the Jamuna, Krishna sat down at a beautiful spot and allowed the cows to drink the cold and transparent water of the Jamuna. Being fatigued, the cowherd boys, Krishna and Balaram, also drank. After seeing the young gopis bathe in the Jamuna, Krishna passed the rest of the morning with the boys. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 22nd chapter of Krishna, stealing the garments of the unmarried gopi girls. And that's the end of that chapter. Next chapter, 23, will be delivering the wives of the brahmanas who are performing sacrifices.
That's a good one. Thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you very much for that reading. As we've mentioned before, you're a really good reader of these stories. If anybody has any questions or just reflections, some comments, something that struck them from this reading, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself or type a question into the comment section, whichever you prefer. And if you're on Facebook, you can type your comment or question into the comment section there. And just to get things going a little bit, I just always appreciate this story. In one sense, it's so scandalous, but the other sense, it's so like perfect, because the gopis actually wanted Krishna to do this in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not that they were, I mean,
Yeah, he granted
one
their
set foot
desire.
off, but in another sense, really happy that it happened. Any comments or questions? I'm not sure. Maybe this story says it all.
Yeah.
I have a question, if I may.
Go ahead, Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
Shraddha Devi Mataji, again, thank you for your service. Maharaj, can you hear me?
I can, loud and clear.
Maharaj, this is not a disrespectful question or a challenging one. This is a very innocent question related to two words I find placed in one of the sentences you just presented to us with your so sweet reading. So the sentence is placed on the second paragraph of the chapter you just read to us. And not only one sentence, a few sentences. So here the gopis, yes, no, generally people worship goddess Durga for some material benediction. Here the gopis prayed to the goddess to become wives of Lord Krishna. The purport is that if Krishna is the center of activity, a devotee can adopt any means to achieve that goal. The gopis could adopt any means to satisfy or serve Krishna. That was the super excellent characteristic of the gopis. So my question is related to the two words, any means. And I repeat it, any means. So my question is it that these two words, any means, are the same as allowing me to rob a bank in order for me to get the necessary Lakshmi for the execution of my devotional service? Any means, the meaning of these two words, any means.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess you should find another religion then. No, you should take, unless you are very advanced like the gopis, you should take advanced advice from more advanced devotees to know if in this occasion this is appropriate. In general, sometimes you can do, and devotees have done, very transgressive things to satisfy Krishna, but they made sure that what they did was authorized by Krishna or by some certain authority.
Can you give us an example, please, of a transgressive thing authorized by authorities?
Well, nothing comes to my mind right now. Maybe somebody else can think of some. But there are occasions where somebody may tell you to do something that, to seemingly break a law or do something that you ordinarily wouldn't do. But if that person has to be a very highly authorized person, like this can't be anybody.
Not just authorized, but qualified.
Huh?
Qualified for that authorization.
Yeah, and qualified to give you that authority.
Maharaj, what about Robin Hood robbing from the rich to give to the poor in order to restore social justice?
I don't think Robin Hood was a devotee.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
On this, Kendra Prabhu says devotees have been arrested on many occasions, especially in the 1970s, for chanting Hare Krishna in public.
Yeah.
So that would be one instance.
Yeah,
where
that's a fact. We broke the law a lot of times. I had to sometimes I had to break the law. When we were trying to get the Philadelphia airport open for book distribution, I had to send devotees in there to do it so they could be arrested, and you could show that we were being prohibited from doing so. So we could, go to court and present a case in front of a judge that we should be allowed to be doing this under the fact that you're not supposed to, Constitution of the United States, block the free exercise of religion.
Of
And
course, yes.
eventually we prevailed, but I had to go down sometimes late at night, because some devotee was arrested in the airport, and the poor devotee is sitting there with a whole bunch of people, criminals, prostitutes, everything down there, and stay there and bailed them out, and then finally we took our case to court and we won. And without that transgression, we couldn't have done it. So you had to do it like that. I remember once time we were in a Harinam party in some suburban city, village outside of Philadelphia, and we're chanting and dancing. And the policeman came and stopped us. He said, "I'm going to do you all a favor. I'm going to put you all in jail." So Heath and Sankirtan was illegal. So these things have happened.
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu adds that Krishna ordered Yudhisthira Maharaj to lie on the battlefield, the Ashwatthama, the elephant, is dead.
Yeah.
And then Chandra Prabhu, he adds, he said it wasn't exactly a lie, just an embellishment of the truth.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Maharaj, for your wonderful answer. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Tulsi Priya, did you have a question? I saw you were unmuted, but wasn't sure if you wanted to add something.
I'm sorry if I was making noise. I don't remember my question.
Okay. I just didn't want to skip over you.
Oh, well, wait a second. One thing I did want to say is that this idea of doing anything for Krishna, first of all, you have to be really sure it's for Krishna, and not that you're using your Krishna consciousness as an excuse for doing some nefarious thing. Even if you don't get anything materially out of it, it might be a boost to your false ego to get away with something. So yeah, I think you have to be a little careful, or a lot careful.
One devotee once joked, everything belongs to Krishna, therefore it's mine, making fun of people who thought that because everything belonged to Krishna, they could just take it.
And Anita has a question. She says, "Thank you very much, Gurudev, for the wonderful reading. Sometimes devotees feel inspired to follow the Katyayani Vrata. Did Srila Prabhupada say anything about this?"
I'm not aware of anything he said about it. Generally, Prabhupada has had us not worshiping any. People have and do sometimes worship devas in order to satisfy Krishna, but he's just said we can go directly to Krishna and do it, and it's not necessary to do that. But if you do go to devas, you have to pray, do something to help your devotional service.
And Tulsi Priya, go ahead. I see your hand is raised there.
I had a comment about the Katyayani Vrata. Without getting authorization, I tried to do that one year, although my husband did give me the green light. And I thought eating khichdi with no salt at all. And by the end of a week, I had lost 7 pounds, and just looking at any kind of food stuff made me nauseous. So I don't recommend anybody try unless you're really, really serious. It's definitely a cleanse. I had to quit.
Thank you for that anecdote. Okay. I've not seen any other questions or comments. Last call. Okay, so I guess we will pause here for tonight.
All right.
Next thing on the agenda is next Sunday's Bhagavatam class at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Just by way of announcement, there's a new YouTube page for all of Ravindra Svarupa's recorded lectures, especially the video lectures here. It's RSDasa is the name of the YouTube page. I'll try to provide a link and an email pretty soon. If you're not already on Ravindra Svarupa's mailing list, go ahead and sign up for that on his website at rsdasa.com. And I think there might be one more comment here.
It's not too late. I have a question.
Okay. Let me just, Sankarsana Prabhu added this comment. He said, I asked a devotee businessman whether he preferred having devotee employees or non-devotee employees. He said, devotees take inventory because they think it's all one, whereas non-devotee employees won't steal.
Well, I used to make fun of people with their attitude, everything belongs to Krishna, therefore it's mine. That's not the way it's supposed to go.
And just one quick second, Tulsipriya, and Kendra Prabhu says, when I hear this pastime, I always have to remind myself that Krishna is the source of all energies, including his internal potency, the gopis, and not just some guy like me. Good comment. Okay, go ahead, Tulsipriya.
I unfortunately tuned in a little bit late, so forgive me if you already addressed this in the talk. I'll watch the video, the recording later if you have. But this sort of activity where Krishna is doing something, especially these days, people are very sensitized to how women are treated. And I believe in the Krishna book it says he treated them just like dolls. And there's a tendency, it used to be Prabhupada would say Krishna, would be criticized because he danced with other men's wives rather. And now we see that he's, quote unquote, objectifying the gopis and stealing their clothes and, with no consent and all that. And we know that they actually wanted that. But in the mind of people who are not really, preaching to new people, I guess, how would you brush off this sort of, or not brush off, but how would you explain this or justify it? Because I do remember we were doing a drama once when I was a new devotee, and one of the girls who was in the ashram, her mother came to see the performance, or see the rehearsal rather, and she was incensed. She was infuriated by this treatment of Krishna towards the gopis, and we tried to explain it to her, but she just wouldn't accept it. She just thought he was immoral. And so I'm just wondering, what's the best way to deal with people when they form a judgment like that without really being, understanding the situation?
I can tell you one time, Prabhupada was confronted by an Indian gentleman. I think he was a Christian who had been converted from Hinduism to Christianity, and it seemed like the way they did it is by saying how bad the Hindu gods are, including Krishna. So the man said to Prabhupada, how can you worship a god who's an adulterer? And Prabhupada said, without losing a beat, Krishna is not the adulterer. You are the adulterer. All women belong to Krishna. When I heard that, I felt this thing in my heart, and I realized, wait a minute, not just one for me. That's what he said. All women belong to Krishna. So you have to understand things correctly. So people will say like that because they don't understand that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. And Prabhupada said once, a devotee knows no way of experiencing happiness except by seeing that Krishna is happy in all respects. And so that's actually selflessness that we should there's also the difference between following in the footsteps and imitating, and that's also an important point. You can't imitate someone even more advanced than you, what to speak of God. So you have to follow in the footsteps. And therefore you see Lord Chaitanya, although he was Krishna, because he was taking the position of a devotee, he was very, very, very careful not to transgress the rules of sannyas. He's very rigid in that way, simply because he was taking that position.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for your questions and comments. And I think we'll wrap it up for this evening. And again, the next program is next Sunday, 3 p.m. And next week is RSDasa too. Wow. Okay, so again, thank you all. And a special thank you to Jayadvaita Maharaj for joining. It's always nice to see you on here. Hare Krishna, my obeisances.
Looks pretty laid back there, huh?
That's good. Glad to see you.
My back is bad, so.
It's very good.
Laid back on your back.
Thank you all very much.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Krishna book ki jai.
Jai.